A chill ran down Luminous's spine. Who goes there? Sensing a presence that hadn't been there before, Luminous spun her body around. There, floating silently in the air without a sound, was a gentle-looking man who somewhat resembled Luminous, dressed sharply in a blue turtleneck and a bright red suit. His heterochromatic eyes gold and silver, a pair to Luminous's own shone eerily. That man was unmistakably the divine ancestor, who should have been destroyed by the judgment unleashed by career Twilight Valentine himself. Tisk, so you were alive. Of course. You are indeed my masterpiece, but I'm not soft enough to let you surpass your parents so easily. Twilight answered Luminous with a transcendent smile. Backing up the core in memories is basic, right? Twilight said, as if teaching a foolish disciple. Luminous was irritated by his attitude, but she had no doubts that he was alive. There was surprise, but Luminous knew the troublesomeness of the divine ancestor better than anyone. Swallowing her disgust, she began to think of realistic countermeasures. Disregarding Luminous's thoughts, Twilight began to speak one-sidedly. It took time to revive, but I've become stronger than before, so it's no problem. Saying this, Twilight twirled the divine ancestor's spear, Origin Blood, in his hand. That was the weapon Jahal had possessed. I see, Luminous realized. Twilight must have synchronized his memories with Origin Blood from the very beginning. Even when Jahal was alive, Twilight could have stolen that body if he had wanted to. Though she wondered why he hadn't done so, Luminous decided there was no point in worrying about it now. Her reading was correct. In reality, Twilight had his own circumstances. He had turned his core into complete information and resided within Velzard in the form of an authority. Until just a short while ago, he had fully believed he had reached a state of complete indestructibility. This current situation was unintended for Twilight as well. He had even forgotten about the backup remaining in the Origin Blood entrusted to Jahal until he revived. However, it was not all in vain. Although Twilight's complete indestructibility was lost, the ultimate skill he had acquired, Lord of Depravity, Anger Minyu, remained intact. The current Twilight was not a pseudo-dragon body, but he boasted an overwhelming existence value as a being close to one. Luminous could not possibly read that far into it. However, she understood that Twilight was capable of anything. Therefore, Luminous had already entered a state of maximum alert. Why is Twilight here? He should have been killed, so how is he still alive? What did he come to do? In the first place, is he an enemy or an ally? Various questions crossed her mind, but Luminous did not hesitate. She manifested her sword, Nitros, in her hand and in the next instant, she kicked off the atmosphere and accelerated. The melt slash. It was a sword technique devised by Hinata, but the overblade technique it was based on was Luminous's specialty. During the years she confronted Granbell, she had been shown it more times than she cared for. And before she knew it, Luminous had mastered it as well. It was a killing strike, but unfortunately, it did not work on Twilight. My, what a bad girl. Raising a hand against your parent, this requires punishment. Catching Nitros with the Divine Ancestor's spear, Origin Blood, the Divine Ancestor Twilight sneered. Luminous clicked her tongue once and created distance in the air. There was no composure in her expression. In just a single exchange, Luminous clearly realized the difference in power between herself and Twilight. She had hoped he might be weakened immediately after revival, but that reaction extinguished her hope. Victory was no longer possible. The reason she was able to defeat him before was that it was a surprise attack after carefully laying traps. In a frontal assault, she couldn't win even if she stood on her head. While understanding this, Luminous's heart remained calm. She thought about why, and the reason came to mind. It was simple. If some misfortune were to befall Luminous, Chloe would have surely warned her. Although Chloe could be short on words and unkind in some aspects, she was not the type of personality to abandon a friend. Because Luminous believed in Chloe, she was convinced that she would manage to get through this situation somehow. However, the reality was still harsh. You are as unreasonable as ever, Chloe. Luminous grumbled this complaint, and began to search for whether there was truly any chance of victory. On the battlefield, having sensed that something was wrong with Luminous, Benimaru ordered the injured warriors to retreat. If the resurrection magic were to be cut off, casualties would only mount. Listen. Do not expect any healing for the time being. Don't any of you throw your lives away in vain. That was the command Benimaru shouted out. He told them not to push themselves, but to wait until they were back in fighting shape. Only then would everyone have a chance to play a part in the battle. Within the holy field, the enemy's combat power could be suppressed to less than 1/10, but that advantage would be lost if they managed to get outside. That was the very reason for this defensive line, but in the current situation, the original strategy had become meaningless. After all, Demon Lord Milim and Hero Chloe had teamed up and charged in, pushing Ivorage, who had taken the form of a beautiful long-haired woman with lovely platinum pink hair back, toward the great hall of the Heavenward Pavilion. Predicting a cataclysmic battle, they likely did this to prevent the collateral damage from affecting this world. Ha! With Lady Milim taking the field, the rest are just small fry. Leave this spot to me. You guys finish off any enemies that slip through. Saying this, Benimaru took his position at the eastern anchor point of the holy field. The massive magical beast that had been carrying Ivorage on his shoulder let out a mighty howl directed at Benimaru. It became a shockwave that shook the very air, but it was pushed back by Benimaru's aura and dissipated into nothingness. The numerous high-ranking individuals that had taken humanoid forms were also being struck down by Hinata and the others. Though many still remained, none seemed capable of escaping the holy field. It looks like we're going to manage, but will it really be okay? When Hinata asked this, Benimaru gave a fearless smile. Yeah, of course. Rimuru-sama has returned, after all. I see, Hinata replied, smiling as well. In that case, Benimaru's confidence was certainly justified. So Rimuru-san is back. That's great news. Masayuki chimed in. He didn't know the details, but he felt that if Rimuru was there, everything else would work itself out. However, a sudden anxiety reared its head. But there is something bothering me. What is it? About that grown-up form of the child from earlier, that looked like my sister, or rather, from my past life. Well, she seemed to be Rudder's sister from long ago. Apparently, her name was Lucia. And it seemed she was Milim's mother. Having recalled those memories, Masayuki shared them. There is no need to worry. Milim is a strong girl, Valgren said. Besides, she continued, it looks like Testarossa and the others made it in time as well. True to her words, the forces that had been turned into ice statues in the former Eurasania were beginning to arrive one after another. Carrere, Carrion, Free, Midray, and a bear. Misery and Rain, as well as Moss, Saka, Kabiru, and Geld had joined them. Before anyone noticed, Saoe's main body was standing right next to Benimaru. Our forces have been depleted, but targeting their commanders has paid off. They were a disorganized mob to begin with. Now it will be easier to defeat them one by one. Saoe declared. Just as he said, victory was close at hand. By nature, cryptids possess no concept of cooperation. It was simply that specific factions of rare, highly intelligent individuals were moving in packs. As a result of defeating those high-ranking individuals, the cryptids had lost all semblance of command. All that remained was to pick them off one by one as a group, and this battle should have ended in a complete victory. However, now came Iverage's transformation. The depths of his power were unfathomable, and one could only hope that this wasn't an evolution. As for Iverage, that's simply out of our league. We can't do anything reckless. Having come this far, everyone had to survive until Rimuru arrived. Benimaru made this vow and kept a sharp eye on the battlefield to ensure no lives were lost in vain. If there was one concern. Is Lady Luminous actually safe? Luminous, who had been watching over the warriors from the sky, was fighting a mysterious figure in a red suit. The identity of this mysterious man was unknown, and his power could only be described as eerie. Benimaru decided that for now he could only watch, but he began to quietly consider whom to select, so they could jump in to support her the moment anything happened. Luminous was being overwhelmed by Twilight, her valiant struggle proving futile. Though she was slammed violently into the ground, she quickly regained her footing. She glared at Twilight and readied her Nitro's katana once more. She no longer had the leeway to use resurrection magic, but Benimaru had been managing that aspect well. Sensing this, she murmured, as expected of him, in admiration. However, this was no time to be worrying about others. Luminous herself was in the most dangerous situation of anyone on the field. Now then, Luminous. My masterpiece. Isn't that enough? I've run into a bit of a bind, so be it dear and return your power to me. Twilight spoke in a gentle tone. Don't underestimate me. I do not have the time to entertain your nonsense. Retorting sharply, Luminous fired a crimson flash bullet. It was blood, one of Luminous's secret arts. It was not magic, but a technique that used a small amount of blood as a medium to condense a curse. It was both material and spiritual, possessing the properties of both physics and magic. It consumed little magic power and could not be blocked even by Yuki's anti-skill. It was a highly versatile, all-purpose technique. Luminous fired blood in rapid succession. However, it did not work on Twilight. A truly well-thought-out technique, but it won't work on me. Stop this futile resistance and just hurry up and to me. Silence. Luminous interrupted Twilight's words and kicked off the ground, leaping backward. At the feet of Twilight, who had taken a step forward, a shining magic circle appeared. It was a trap-type offensive magic circle. Luminous had set this up under the cover of the dust cloud the moment she was slammed into the ground. She had then feigned a retreat to lure Twilight into it. Evil, perish. Disintegration. A pillar of holy light confined Twilight. The torrent of spirit particles, dazzling to the eye, turned his body into dust. However, Luminous felt a chill she could not shake. Something felt wrong. Didn't it look like he wasn't holding anything? Where did he put the divine ancestors' blood lance, origin blood? The moment Luminous realized this, she felt the sensation of a cold hand on the back of her neck. Ha ha ha. I taught you that information is what matters, didn't I? My soul is recorded in this spear, so destroying my body is useless. Twilight laughed loudly while strangling Luminous. He had fully regenerated using the corpse of a cryptid as sustenance. Tisk. So he is immortal unless I destroy the spear. Luminous's read that he synchronized his memories with the spear was correct, but she couldn't see a way to defeat him. Rather, the fact that she needed to destroy both the spear and his main body simultaneously only troubled her further. And the situation was the worst it could be. Although Luminous did not need to breathe, she felt pain. Her life force was being drained through Twilight's palm. Truly delicious. You really are the best. Twilight's jubilant voice rang in Luminous's ear, loud and grating. It was filled with a sense of superiority that irritated Luminous. Oh, right. I don't want our time together as father and daughter to be disturbed, so I think I'll make sure no interruptions can get in. As he said this, Twilight snapped his fingers. Snap. With this, Luminous and Twilight were isolated from the outside world. Space had been severed by the barrier that Twilight deployed.